Hello, it's the first day of May. I'm Dale Matthews. This is Inside News, and we're joined by Mike Jones. Lucky guys.
Yeah, who is it that says that we are like closet socialists or communists or something like that? Because you see Dale and his May Day, it's in red too. Did you notice that?
It's in pink. That's
He's a
pink.
commie. He's a commie.
That's right. I actually got criticized once by, you could only guess who, for wearing a pink shirt. Whatever.
What? Because that somehow meant that you were.
Yes.
What?
A pinko.
Oh, pink. Okay, yes.
And remember when that person on Facebook...
I didn't realize.
Remember the person on Facebook said that we were part of the liberal media?
Okie doke.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, they clearly don't watch the show, or they just don't know what that means.
Especially Mike. Yeah, right. We're socialists and you don't know it. That's one of my favorites.
I'm part of the establishment. Listen,
Yes. I was accused of that by Harriet Harris.
Yeah, no, that's right. That you were part of the establishment because you come and tape the meetings. That makes you establishment. That's really. But now, listen, we've changed. What our definition of establishment is. Now we just paint somebody with it, regardless if it fits or not. It's whatever. Anyway. On with the show.
Well, now, one of the things about this show is that occasionally somebody will say, well, they're just giving their opinions. Okay. And they have no solutions. Boy, is that wrong. And also, we never really see any part of the news. I've heard this. We're going to show you the sheriff's rather anemic presentation to the budget committee today. Where's the Courier's version of this, right? And this was audio, and it could have been played by KJO in another universe. But these kinds of things are possible. Where else are you going to see, not theoretically now, but actually going to see this sheriff's presentation to the budget committee asking for money, asking for a solution to this emergency, Mike?
Well, you're not going to see it elsewhere, and you're not even going to see him doing what you just described, are you?
We're going to find out if I can keep my mouth shut while he's talking. Okay. Sheriff, the floor is yours.
I have my marching orders from Commissioner Heck. I will try and keep this short and concise and directly to the point. I appreciate you all volunteering your time, too, as well. Although understandably being the sheriff, I do like a captive audience. We'll try and get through this. Josephine County Sheriff's Office, and again,
Wait a second. That's not even moving. I don't know why it's not moving. Let's try right from there and see if is he frozen in fear? Let's find out.
I'm Sheriff Dave Daniel, Josephine County Sheriff.
Yeah, that's weird.
The mission of the Josephine County Sheriff's Office is to provide superior public safety services in a professional, ethical, and fiscally responsible manner. The following
I'll tell you what's going on there, just so you know.
What's going on there? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll tell you what's going on there, Dale. That is the capture. Unfortunately, when we're capturing, and that was. Well, I didn't live capture that, so it should not have done that. But
or it might be that on the original.
Yeah, it may be
from the county. The only way to see the slides is you've got to capture at least part of the county's presentation. As bad as the resolution is, and it doesn't have to be, and we'll talk about that another day ad nauseum. You can't see from where I sit. You can't see high definition sheriff and the screen at the same time. And even if you could see the screen, it's really blown out. I mean, it's very, very weak. And so this is really the only way to see it. So we'll all just relax and listen to what he says. And I said I wasn't going to interrupt, but there was a reason I want you to understand. And Mike's just explained it. Here we go.
Certainly not everything. Notable items for each divisions of the Sheriff's Office that provide mandated services for Josephine County. First, I want to start with our volunteer unit, one of our most important units for sure. We have about 135 volunteers total. It includes the search and rescue division, our posse as well. They also have just a regular volunteer division. We help out, they help out in civils on Mondays with fingerprints and reception. They help out in the courthouse with courthouse security. They assist citizens in Merlin and also the Merlin substation and also our Cape Junction substation. And as of new, our volunteer patrols have recently been implemented. So I do have 2 cars in different areas of the county out actually on patrol, showing a presence. That was something new. Part of our search and rescue are stats for some of the 2015 for our search and rescue division. We conducted about 31 searches, 18 searches in Josephine County, 13 assists in Corsair counties, which is California, Oregon search and rescue counties that are very closely bordered to us. We assisted in Douglas County Sheriff's Office during the Umpqua Community College shooting investigation for scene security. We also responded to the Christmas Day search and the rescue of the Wooten family on Taylor Creek.
Where's the emergency?
Stats continued. We performed 2 evidence searches, one of them including the Jackson County, the Jackson family double homicide up in Merlin. Provided roadblocks for 5 wildland fires, participated in 10 different public events. And the fiscal year 16-17 budget has been reduced, so you should know, by $58,000 from the 15-16. I think I said 16-17, hopefully. Our civil division, a very busy division for the number of staff that we have there. Our hours are specific weekly from 9 to 12 to the public, and then from 1 to 4. Mondays only we do new weapon permits and fingerprinting for concealed handgun licenses. Tuesdays we only do renewals. That's an additional day that was not provided previously. We thought we could enhance our services better and give the public a little more outlet to get to us to do renewals. And then Tuesday through Friday we do all the other many things, the civil papers that need to be served as far as restraining orders and stalking orders and things like that need to get out, including property issues. We are in the process right now and have been for some time in the process of converting all of our hard copy concealed handgun license files and materials to electronic files in the computer. Saves us time, paper, i.e. money. Continued some of the stats for this fiscal year already up to date. We've done about over 2,000 concealed weapons permits processed. Those are both new and renewals. That's up from 1,200 last year.
Awesome.
Papers served by just 1 civil process server. That's one deputy. Over 1,500 fingerprints and over 170 foreclosure sales. And that's a lot considering we have a civil manager, basically an assistant in there right now that processes paper, and 1 civil deputy.
Where's the emergency?
That's the workload that they undertake. Very proud of them. Court security, another portion or division of the Sheriff's Office. We provide 2 full-time deputies to the Josephine County Courts. We still receive, at least we should still receive, $62,000 reimbursement from the courts for the 16-17 fiscal year, plus overtime expenses that are incurred for them. Hopefully this funding will continue. However, it's not completely up to us. It's up to the legislature to make sure those funds are available to us. We do have an evidence facility as well, over 80,000 pieces of evidence right now in our facility. We're trying greatly to reduce that. We did complete in the first year a full audit of that facility. Every piece of evidence, every item in there is now certainly accounted for. And we've also recently contracted with PropertyRoom.com to start disposing much of this evidence. Those monies do go back into the general fund. Dispatch and records, another division. Upward trend in calls for service. Need I say more? Upward trend in calls for service.
Okay, wait, sorry. You said and Mike's quite right. What happens is the money from sales of items where they cannot find the owner. Actually, at a certain point, they give up trying to find the owner. They just can't find them. And like all journalism, the facts end where you decide to stop. and in this case, then the money goes to the general fund. That's technically correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then immediately it's given back to the sheriff's department.
One would hope.
Well, yes. However, there's always the potential, in another county, of course, that there would be less than an aggressive effort to try to find the owners of the property if you know that all of those proceeds are going to come right back to your department.
Right. Yeah. Well, and this is a well-known issue in law enforcement. And I'm getting that horrible echo. And they apparently net quite a lot of money by civil asset forfeiture.
Yeah, yes, they do. So, look, Mike's not saying, oh, they're cheating. No. But what they used to do is just immediately turn around and give it to the sheriff's department. That didn't look so good, didn't look so good. Mm-hmm. So now what they do is they say, well, we'll give it to general fund. And then, boom, immediately give it to the sheriff's department. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. Yeah. Well, you can say it. He did. All right.
Well, and I saw one bright spot in there. Apparently, we're passing out a whole bunch of concealed handgun licenses. Why they're not trumpeting that from the rooftops, I have no idea. You are walking amongst a heavily armed populace. This ought to be in the mind of every criminal everywhere in this county, for crying out loud.
And if you move here, you'll have the lowest property taxes on earth. Whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. So good.
Yes. It's all
You'll
good.
Be plagued by huge orange signs everywhere you go in Grants Pass, but just stay out of the city and you'll be okay. Yeah, I love this idea that people are deciding that we're on our own. We are on our own. Okay. All right. So back to the sheriff. Here we go, Sheriff.
14,090 calls for service in 2015, up from 10,156 calls for service in 2014. 4,415 calls for service in the first quarter of 2016, up from 3,849 from last year. An eliminated position, there was a dispatch position, was added back in 15-16 fiscal year, and we added 4,500 in revenue from the Forest Service, who we had not been contracting with for dispatch services previously, but are now. Patrol operations. Patrol area is for Josephine County is about 1,600 square miles. Currently, we're working 10 hours in any 24-hour period, 7 days a week. So only
time
10
to change
hours
the slide, guys.
Period. We're able to add back an eliminated position, plus add a brand new position, 15-16. And those are actually, due to the time it takes to get those up and running, we have one in the academy, and then we were lucky enough to hire a lateral, which is currently on the road and working for the citizens.
This is not our fault. They're not
7
putting
patrol
up the slide.
deputies. We also have 3 contract deputies and a part-time support from our search and rescue director, which is a deputy as well. Recently, we just finished a contract signing and adding a brand new seasonal Forest Service deputy for 6 months out of the year. That is basically entirely funded by the Forest Service. And so that's an additional half position, if you will. Continuing in the patrol operations, $512,000 in anticipated revenue from the BLM, Marine Board, City of Cave Junction, and Forest Service contracts. City of Cave Junction saturation patrol recently conducted was some of the extra funds we were able to garner. And those are the type of special projects that we need to be doing, thinking outside the box in certain areas when times get tough. On average, there are 2 to 3 deputies on a shift per day or night, which is not a lot. Our jail division, our adult jail, 4,079 bookings and 208 forced releases for the 14-15 year. Added a jail bed recently dedicated to the City of Cave Junction. It was in the last year's contract with them. I think they needed that. I felt they needed that service, and I believe it will help, or has helped. We also added a 10 treatment beds or 10 treatment beds out of the JRI funding through 16-17. We'll maintain a capacity of 130 beds for the 16-17 fiscal year.
Just real quick, Mr. Sheriff.
Sure.
The JRI is the Justice Reinvestment dollars.
Yes.
So those are dollars legislated by the state to try to keep people from going to
Correct.
to prison. Okay.
Correct. Worked very closely with Nate Gowrie on that project.
Great.
What are forced releases? What does that mean?
Forced releases is when we're at our 130 cap, and we have to make room. Somebody's coming in that needs that's of a higher priority, and we have to make room and let them go. Typically much lesser in priority. $2,140,100 in expected revenues for our facility 16-17. This includes the City of Grants Pass.
Hey, Dale.
Yes, sir.
Treatment bed reinvestment funds. that Mr. Hare just spoke of.
Oh, there we go. Now it's changed.
It's not us that's doing this. Yeah. They're not changing it. And I think he's the one actually controlling the slide presentation. He's just simply not pressing the button.
Well, I thought they were referring to stuff which might have been on the screen that we were not seeing. And it may well be the video broadcast, too, is just funky like that. So, yeah.
So we're seeing here, we're presenting to you everything I think that was presented from the live budget meeting. We're doing the best that we can, but it's not under our control.
House Bill 1145, which is our corrections grant. Senate Bill 395, which is our DUI grant for felony people that are brought in on felony DUI charges. We received money from the state for that, as well as ICE and U.S. Marshal contract beds. Which is not a high number for us, but it nonetheless is revenue. The last bullet there is capacity needs to be at least 100 beds in order to maintain these revenue streams and still have room for Measure 11 inmates. Therein lies the future. We have to have that 100 bed level, or we fall into this slippery slope. Sheriff's Office full-time equivalents. They don't need to go down all of those. It gives you an idea how many total people we have working in positions. There's a little bit the way the funding these go. It's not, well, I won't even go there. Increased to 2 FTEs this year, which is good. One's replacing a retiring deputy 6 months early. Again, it takes a lot of time to hire and train these deputies. So we're trying to get a jump on it to keep the operation running smoothly for that position. The other FTE is an additional deputy in the jail for what is obviously much needed coverage while we have these deputies going to the academy. The goal is to have all of our staff certified through DPSST, which is Department of Public Safety Standards and Training, by the end of the year. You can look at some of the historical staffing levels of what we've been at, starting with 0506 all the way up to where we should be at in the 16-17, which is the number of 58.
Well, at least you can hear him.
So we have total Sheriff's Office revenue, $3,101,000. Total support needed on top of that is $4,781,000.
At last,
total
number
request for the Josephine County Sheriff's Office to function as at what is a status quo, if you will, level is $7,800,000 ish. Asterisk there, though, from the general fund, SRS funds, and the beginning public safety fund balance, which is truly 86% of all available revenues from the public safety fund, is about what we gather is about 68%.
Go, Mike.
19% goes.
You had something to say there, bud.
Oh no, I was just gonna say a little dyslexia there on part of the sheriff, and but he corrected himself, and so not required.
So somewhere back almost a year ago, they told all departments, we've talked about this before, to submit a status quo budget. And that's what they've done. They could just as easily have said, submit status quo minus 5%, minus 1%, minus 10%. They could have,
they could
except
have.
for the sheriff, but they didn't.
And then they could have taken that 10% savings from any number of these other departments and put it in the fund that they're proposing setting up for money that is going to go to the sheriff's department. They could have done that if they wanted to. And you would think that now certainly would have been the time to do that, since of course we know that in the middle of next year is the end of the world. We all know this. It's been told to us over and over that the last day of life on earth as we know it is the last day of the fiscal year 2016. So,
and there's no activity in Washington, D.C. or in 1/4 of the country revolving around SRS payments. 1/4 of the country is dependent on SRS payments, but there's no activity at all, except when we point out there is activity, and they say, well, yes, of course, we know there's activity.
Yeah.
Still, it's the end of...
It's interesting to see, the sheriff talk about the numbers there. I didn't hear him reference the emergency one time during that. He didn't ask for more money at any time during that. Like, boy, you know what? I'm really feeling like I'm being shortchanged here. And if you have any available money, please send it my way. No requests like that. It's almost like these people.
Why are you telling me to submit a status quo budget? I mean, there's your public venue to ask the question that the people are backing you up on. They're trying to back you up, Sheriff. And you could have said, now, I've been told to ask for a status quo budget, and I got to tell you, that's not cutting it.
Yeah, right. He could have done that. It's interesting to hear him talking about this, sweep that they did down in Cave Junction, as though that's out of the box thinking.
Oh, I caught that too. I just didn't want to interrupt, but really, that's about as in the box as you can get.
Yeah, that's standard operating procedure, one would think. Yeah, I'm a little surprised about that, but listen, this is where we're at. I think that the problem is that all of these people are on the same page when it comes to the funding. They're never going to talk about, hey, give me that money. Why aren't you giving me that money? Well, there must be some reason why they all share they're all of one mind on this topic. What could that be? What reasoning could they possibly have that would, have them all thinking the same way? That, of course, this is a dire emergency. I mean, this is life and death. But no, I meant right behind roads. No, roads, of course, roads are more important than public safety. Come on.
Okay, now, and there's something that came out during all of this that you guys probably heard because you're sharp. About roads funding. Roads funding is now higher than it's ever been before. Higher than it's ever been before. Now, wait a minute. Isn't this a status quo budget?
Mm-hmm.
And so if it is truly, for all departments now, a status quo budget, why is it then that the budget committee is giving much more money to roads than they ever have before in the history of Josephine County?
Yeah, I don't know that they're giving more. It's just that the funds that they have earmarked to go into the Roads and Bridges Reserve Fund is more than it's ever been because of, I guess, the money coming in that's supposed to go into that account is, overshooting expectations.
It's kind of flying in the face of, do we even need to say it, of this emergency. The sheriff is acting like, well, status quo budget. Here's the thing that distresses me most, because I've suggested, and Mike and I have talked about this, and a couple others have paid some homage to this idea. Look, if you're going to set aside some money for an emergency, set it aside for whatever the emergency is. Like an emergency where we need to hire somebody to write happy, fluffy articles about the commissioners because that's going to increase economic development, right? Yeah. An emergency fund, right? And so if that's the case, I've said, well, let's put it out there so the sheriff has access to that money. But when you hear the sheriff, sorry, maybe you love this sheriff, but when you hear the sheriff say that doing a patrol at night, is out of the box thinking,
yeah,
and going to a place where you know the bad guys are, and just sitting there and picking them up as they walk in the door, that's out of the box thinking? Really? Now, I'm still in favor of making sure that a sheriff gets money. But this sheriff?
Yeah, well, you know what?
Really?
I'm not impressed so far, but
No.
He's not trying to impress me. He's trying to impress
The
yeah, or the government apparatus as a whole. There, he's I don't know. What this guy thinks being a good sheriff is. I don't think it's.
But Mike, I know I'm interrupting you, but Mike, he wants to be a team player. That's pretty obvious.
Mhm.
Can he play on our team? I don't mean you and me.
No,
I mean,
no, he can't. No, he can't. Sorry.
It sure seemed like that at the beginning. It seemed
Yeah.
that with Wally Hicks too, didn't it? Didn't it seem that way with Wally Hicks and the sheriff, that they were on our team, sort of, and they were headed, and they just stopped.
Well, you know what? Listen, I like this one thing that they do in some other governments, and I think they do it in Israel. They do it in some other places. That all of a sudden, if they don't like somebody, they just vote no confidence, and you're out. That day, it's over, pal. You're done. And if you got that hanging over your head, I don't know if that makes a difference with what kind of politician that you are. But I just think, listen, these people, the commissioners and everybody that has this line that no, you can't possibly take that money out of the Roads and Bridges Reserve and put it over here. They're all lying for the levy. They all, and when I say the levy, I'm throwing it out generically, because I mean any form of revenue that's coming out of your pocket instead of some landfall thing that they got, because they want to spend that money the way they want to spend it, and they're not going to be told how to spend it by you. They will tell you how they're going to spend your money. It doesn't go the other way. So. I'm sick of that, and we need to make sure that when we're hiring new people, that we understand that they have the progression of power. They have an understanding of where it comes from. It comes from the people. We the people. That's what it's supposed to be.
And that's not just a theory. That can be. We've got to put up with 2 more years of Wally Hicks, who sat right in there in those illegal meetings with the commissioners. They were illegal meetings. He was told before he even ran that kind of stuff was illegal. The day that he got elected, he was told it was illegal. As we led into that illegality, he was reminded it was illegal by a couple of people, including me. And then he said it in the meetings with them where they did it illegally. And then he later said, no, it wasn't, well, you don't have that on tape. When he saw that we had it on tape, we have to put up with 2 more years of that kind of legal counsel and 2 more years of Simon Hare. So the question is, how much power are they really going to wield? And that's all dependent on who you decide on coming up in a few days or now, and who you decide on in November, because it's going to be more of the same, buddy.
Yeah. You know what? And speaking of, November choices, or even
you're going to go the Courier. Going to talk about the Courier. This is
no. I'm not going to talk about the Courier yet. But that's certainly
we
something.
We can do that tomorrow, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, that's something in the mix. Yeah, they've made a few picks here. It's the judges on the ballot. And I see a whole string of them. I know nothing about. I feel horribly guilty. I'm confessing to you now. I feel horribly guilty that most of these people have no. I don't know who these people are, but But here's the really bad thing is that it doesn't matter that I don't know who they are because they're running alone.
In America.
Unopposed.
In America? Really?
Well, and Connie Roach running unopposed. There's several people running unopposed, and that bothers me. But these judges, we had a little encounter with a judge, mid last year, and I was not impressed at all. This guy,
bizarre,
clearly political activist type judging, and I think these people, it's critical that we know who these people are because they're making decisions about certain things that fall into the political realm. We really should know who they are. And and the sad thing is people can barely get motivated enough to learn what's happening in their local governments and how to deal with that. You want to learn
when I say we're
20 judges.
When I say we're on our own, there have been some times in the past, and you guys know this already, where we caught somebody on tape doing something illegal. I mean, it was cut and dried. It was no argument about it. Even the state guy said, yes, that's illegal, but we're debating about whether we're going to do anything about it. And so what I did is I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll go and I'll file something here locally. I'll file it. I'll go through the system. I'll use the legal system. And so I went to several lawyers in this area and outside this area, Jackson County, up in Ashland. And I said, I'd like to do this. They said, well, Josephine County is well known that you're not going to get anything through the court system. I said, come on now. No, we still have to work in Josephine County. This is what they said. And so we're not going to, but you have a really good case. I have a really good case. Yeah, you got a really good case there, but we're not going to take it on. And so what I did is I went to one of those places that sells the forms. You can fill them out for yourself. I went to the place and I said, I'd like to get a couple of forms. They said, okay. And this is what I want to do. They said, that's good. And what county are you going to be filing it in? And I said, Josephine County. And they said, don't even bother. What? I said, but this is a sale. I want to buy a form from you. No, really. I mean, if you insist, we'll sell it to you, but it's not going to do you any good. What? Because what they're going to do is you're going to fill it out, and then they're going to say, well, this tiny little, that little thing, and this unspoken, unwritten rule, that's the second time I'd heard that. Unwritten rule, and they're going to charge you the full $150, and then it's going to go nowhere. They said, we've heard this dozens and dozens of times. We don't even sell the forms to people in Josephine County.
Well, I lived in a county that was very, very similar to that, doing any sort of legal work, court filings and stuff like it. It was very, very similar to that. It's not that you couldn't do it. It's that they didn't want, I mean, this all pushes business to lawyers as opposed to private people doing their own legal work.
Take it on.
Yeah. And they, some counties make it very, very difficult to, they go over it with a fine tooth comb and they find reasons to reject your applications and things of that nature. I'm familiar with that. I was a residential landlord for many, many years. And so naturally, occasionally it came time to where you had to deal with an eviction or something like that. And it was god awful experience. Trying to get it through the court. So is that similar to what is going on here? Why was it that they, what were you trying to file on and what was, why?
So in this particular case, now there's been several of them, but the one that pops to me most was that there was somebody that was running for office all by himself. And I thought, that just doesn't seem right. Am I qualified to potentially run for this position? Even if, I may not be the world's best qualified person, is anybody qualified? And it turns out that the qualifications, I had them. So I went down and I talked with Art Harvey, who was the assistant clerk at that time. And I said, look, I don't want to do anything that I'm not qualified for. And I'm not in love with the idea of continuing to run for positions because I look like that's all that I do, and that's not right. Now, that's not all that I do, but I didn't want to come across that way. So I said, can I? Oh, yeah, you're qualified. And I said, now, wait a minute. Now, I want to make absolutely sure, am I qualified? And he said, yes, you're definitely, you have all the qualifications. I said, well, then, I guess I'll submit my application. It was like $50 or whatever it was. So I submitted it. And I said, now, I'm going to come back in a few days because you're supposed to submit some kind of thing for the voters pamphlet. We talked about this last night. And I'm going to do so. But I just want to make absolutely sure everything's cool. And he said, yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. No doubt. So I went down there a couple of days later, and I was approached by his boss, who was the previous clerk. I can't remember her name, but you guys all know who I'm talking about. And so she came up to me and she said, you're not qualified for this position. I said, now, okay, I did ask that question of Art Harvey, who is your assistant. And he said that I was. She says, but you're not. I said, okay, please then tell me why. And she says, well,
no,
it's an unwritten rule.
Unwritten rule.
It's an unwritten rule. I said, no. So I got a little testy, and I said, are you now the chief repository of the unwritten rules of Josephine County?
Right. Yes.
That wasn't very polite, but
I think that's a judgment call.
The unwritten rule.
Yeah,
so this is one of the things. I went to local lawyers, and oh, yeah, that's really wrong. I said, well, okay, but we're not going to take that on. I said, what? That's the clerk. I said, oh, come on now. Either that's right or it's wrong. I mean, well, maybe you should listen to them. And I said, what are you?
Oh, I get it. I get it. They didn't want any further difficulties in working in Josephine County courts. If they started jacking the county guy, I understood.
Yep. Yeah. That's the county in which we live. That's why this is called badcounty.com. Because that's where we live. Now, we're going to do something about that, but it's going to take a little while. I mean, so this is why, sorry, this is negative, okay? When we never say negative things on the show. We're not going to get to anybody run for judge.
Yeah, okay.
Who's it going to be? It would have to be somebody new to the area, wouldn't it?
And it would have to be an attorney. So, I mean, that's what do you, I don't know. I hate to cast aspersions on an entire profession.
Well, if it's cooked right, I love asparagus. But the point is that if you're going to run for something and potentially lose, which, of course, is a big potential for a lot of people, if you're going to run for something, then and you do lose, now you're going to have to appear in front of the person that defeated you, or that person's best pal, Judge Wolke, or Lindy Baker. And now, how are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? In this county, where they won't even sell you the form, somebody in another county won't sell you the form because they know they could make money off of it. They're in the profit business, right? They won't even sell it to you because they know that they're cheating you because nobody's going to accept your form. That comes from the mentality, I know we're breaking the law and I don't care. Keithek?
Okay. Before we went aside on that, what were we talking about? We were talking about
we were letting the sheriff finish up his presentation, which was dynamic. Here we go.
The AM13 is given to the Juvenile Justice Department. Support needed by division our adult jail, $2,700,000 approximately. Patrol dispatch, $1,300,000. All the other divisions and components about $775,000. Again, the total from the last slide is about $4,700,000 is really what we need from outside support. And I'm going to wind it down here. We're still working on some projects, obviously. We're still completing our Lexipol policy manual. That's a priority for
They're completing a manual.
Year. It's very important that we get that our policy manuals and procedures up to date. Again, have every deputy certified at the year's end. Continue to strive for professionalism and efficiency, thinking outside, trying to figure out how to make this place run better as far as an office is concerned. Diligently work to keep employee morale high. It was an issue when I came in, and as we near maybe the end of 16, 17, I may be looking at what to do then as well about how to keep that morale high. Our personnel are, our most important component. Plan as best we can for what lies ahead for the 17-18 fiscal year. When
now take a look at these priorities. These are the priorities in the middle of an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
Complete a manual.
Yeah.
Get people certified. Okay, it's a good goal. They want people's morale to be high that works in the office. The last time that I'm aware of that he appeared in front of the county commissioners was he was asking for more fuel-efficient cars so they could do more training and certification.
In fact,
yeah, man.
In likelihood, we will see a fiscal cliff like no other.
Like no other.
I would be happy to entertain any questions from...
Oh, I got a couple of questions for you, buddy.
I have a question about the 100 beds that's needed.
Fiscal cliff like no other.
Contracts. Is that 100 beds have to be available for those?
The grant monies. For us to receive those grant monies. Go ahead.
And if they don't need those beds, then we can use them for other things. But if they have a prisoner that comes in that needs one of those 100 beds, then we have to release someone else to take. Is that the way it works?
Well, no, I think the question I think that you're asking is if we reach that 100 bed level and we go below that level, I won't be able to support all the Measure 11 inmates, which is the person-to-person crimes, or the City of Grant's past contract. I also won't be able to receive some of the DUI grant monies and other monies that were paid.
So the 100 beds isn't mandated by the grants that 100 beds have to be available for them.
And the Measure 11 for us to be, and the Measure 11 inmates, which is approximately 25 to 30.
But the grants themselves, they don't specify the number of beds that have to be available for
True,
them.
but the problem is once we go down that slippery slope of starting to lose beds, we won't be able to even have beds per se.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm making myself clear. I'm trying to understand the nature of the grant. Does the grant?
They come from the Senate and the House and their bills, and for us to incarcerate for a certain number of people,
right,
they help support that cause.
Yeah.
And likely some of that is to keep people out of Department of Corrections as well, but.
And is that a cost that we get X number of dollars in a grant and we have to make sure there are X number of beds available in order to get that money, or is that when they have that we get the grant,
when we have those people,
and then they send the people, and the yes, number of people they actually send us is not exactly related to the amount of the grant? Is that? I'm just
correct. It's not a
okay,
fixed grant money. It's per person, per what comes in.
Okay, so she asked him that 4 times. What's the real answer? We've heard the real answer, and you've seen the tape many times in the little back room. In order to get a discount on meals, you have to hit 100. And then there's quite a discount. That's where 100 comes from. Because you hear him and he's carefully dancing around the actual question. Are they saying 100? Well, no, but you said 100. Are they saying 100? Well, no, it's the meals. Now, maybe so, well, that's not right, Dale Matthews. That's what he said. Okay, but he's not going to say that at the podium. We want to get a wonderful discount on meals.
Well, I don't know. I mean, why wouldn't he want to say that? I mean,
because that sounds so insignificant. No, it's got to be tied in with grants. It's got to be tied in with orders, and it has to be tied in with the governor's orders and the president and, the United Nations or something. It can't be just tied in with, well, we'd like to get a discount on meals. That's like saying, I want to get more fuel efficient cars so we can get better training. That's not the kind of stuff you're going to do in the ambassador. You're going to do that in the little back room. Explain why it is that 100. Why not 85? Why not 120? It's 100, and that's the cutting edge. Now, would they? Of course, they want to have 100 or more, or more, or more. Of course, they do. And Measure 11. These are serious crimes and etc. But there's always a real reason. And when you hear somebody kind of dancing around it or having to be asked 4 times, what is the reason for this? Why 100? And they're not answering. There's always a reason why they're not answering. Well, we were going to play back much more of this meeting. Really, much more. Yeah, boy, this is the gift that keeps giving. This was a wonderful meeting. But we're not going to have the next budget meeting for a little while. Tell them why, Mike.
Well, it's not until like the 17th of May, I think.
Yeah, which is kind of an interesting day.
Yeah, I think, isn't that the election day?
That's election day, right. So it's a little different in Oregon, obviously, as most people will have already voted by that time. It's not like we're going down to some booth, although you can. Booth Street Mini. You can go into the clerk's office and sit at a little kind of half vote thing and vote. Yeah, you can.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
never done that.
Like that. Yeah. Some people like it. It's like somebody that we like that won't talk to you on the telephone. I mean, there are just some people that they want to do things by hand.
Yes.
Little inside news joke there. So that was interesting. Now what we're going to play next time is a little thing from a person in the audience that you'll enjoy, and a little bit more of the budget committee shutting down every possible opportunity to listen to sanity from Peggy Goodwin. And I really want to play back where she's explaining, but that's not what I was suggesting. And they're all debating what she's suggesting and why it's not a good idea, which is a lot of bogus talk anyway. And she's, that's not what I suggested. Go ahead.
Yeah, and one of the things that there should be a force of people that arrive for the next budget meeting, because this is the last opportunity because they tabled a suggestion by Margaret Goodwin to set up an account in which they would take this money from the roads fund and put it into this fund that could potentially either fund the sheriff or the roads department, so that money would be available. They want to say no to that, just like they said no to the other 2 suggestions of hers. But they tabled it, hoping that, she'll forget about it, or it'll lose steam and she'll think it was a bad idea or something and not make the suggestion the next time or whatever. But we should be in the room to lend some moral support. Listen, Margaret Goodwin is the sole voice of sanity in Josephine County budgeting, period. Okay? So if you have seen her on our program and agree that this woman is very logical, she is hardworking in that she reads every bit of this stuff that none of us would be caught dead reading. And if you appreciate that and you like the idea that she's looking out for us by suggesting that there be a fund that includes these road funds that could potentially go to the sheriff next year when we fall off the cliff, then you should be in the audience lending support to that on that day.
This suggestion several times on this show, and we know that she watches the show. So it is in some ways a joint effort to try to insert some sanity on all this. She's the point person. She's the one that's actually sitting up there and saying, "No, wait a minute, this is, really not the way to go," and laying it out clearly and obviously quite ready to go straight into the next suggestion. Okay, you don't like that one? Into the next suggestion. And they're just shooting her down at every opportunity, and they're going to shoot her down again. They're not going to accept that. Okay, we already know that. You already know that. But it's nice to be able to sit right there and to lend some support to somebody that's taking the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
Yes, she's obviously thought all of this out in great detail, including when I say this or propose this, they're going to say this, in which case I need to counter with such and such. She has thought this out in great detail, and I think that is such a huge benefit to the people of the county, and she will never be appreciated for what to the magnitude that she should be appreciated for doing this. And I think the least that we could do is show up and lend support to the idea there. And so I hope that we'll do that May 17th.
The other thing that we can do is we can change the composition of this most important board that's out there by the next election with a couple of people are, not wishy-washy, not, oh, well, let's go along to get along. Oh, let's be part of the system. And if she then was accompanied by 2 commissioners that were fiscal conservatives and wanted to see money going toward law enforcement, if not necessarily this sheriff, and then she would be on there, and then those 2 people, over the strenuous objections of Simon Hare, would say goodbye to a couple of members of the budget committee and replace those with common sense people. Mike Jones would be a perfect person to be on that committee. He's probably going to say no. I haven't asked him about it, but imagine what would happen then if you had people on there that were saying, "Now, wait a minute, I'm not in love with this sheriff, but shouldn't the sheriff have, the possibility of getting his hands on some of this stuff, some of these funds?"
Right.
Seems like a no-brainer to me, buddy, but you're just going to have to use your brains, talk with your neighbors. It's, not enough if only you vote. If you're hoarding the knowledge, share it with a few other people, talk about it with them. Maybe they'll convince you to completely change direction. Probably not, but you have a choice. You have a chance to talk with them about it. And, if you want change, there's a way to get change. And if you don't, boy, there's a lot of opportunities to have more of the same.
Mm-hmm.